Okay, good. So good evening, everyone. This is Chairwoman Jane Lichter, and I call to order the joint meeting of the Board of Education of Baltimore County and the Area Education Advisory Councils for Wednesday, January 29th, 2025. What I first like to do is have our board members, or I will introduce our board members. If they could turn their cameras on, if you're able to, that would be great. So we have Ms. Tiara Booker Dwyer is with us. And we have Miss Chiga Kalu. And we have Miss LaShawn Frempong. And Mr. Rod McMillian.
Good evening.
Thank you. And Miss Christina Pumphrey.
Please excuse me, I'm unable to turn on my camera based on where I am. I apologize.
That's okay. We're glad you're here. And Miss Slosky.
Good evening, everybody.
And Mr. Young.
Good evening.
Thank you. I think both of our phone numbers are not board members, correct? Is there any board members that I have not introduced? Okay, so first I'd just like to thank everybody who is attending, both board members and also our members of the Area Education Advisory Councils. So thank you for being here, and also thank you for the work that you do all year long to help us get the voice of our communities and our parents and even our students, as we've seen in many meetings. So we know that you work very hard behind the scenes to try to get the information that your community needs, and you work really closely with staff. And we really appreciate all you do and the input that you provide us. So we look at these meetings as a way for us to take a pause, and really listen to you as you advocate and discuss the needs of your individual communities. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Sibley, who is the coordinator for the Area Education Advisory Councils, and she will kind of guide us through the next parts as far as who is going to speak and such. So Ms. Sibley, glad you got on, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. I'd like to first begin by introducing all of the advisory council members. And if you could just raise a hand, or I hope you all are all here. Southeast is Jackie Brewster. She's the chair.
Yes, I'm on the phone.
Okay, thank you. Northeast is Chris Burley. Central is Dr. Elisa Alonso.
She was running a few minutes late. Hopefully she's not having technical problems, but she will be joining.
Okay, thank you. Northwest is Phil Stoller, the chair.
Yeah, I'm on the phone.
Thank you, Phil. And Southwest, last but not least, Marlena Collington Purcell. I don't see her.
She may have had a conflict at the last minute. I'm not sure.
She may have. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much. And I really appreciate the meetings that we have with the board. And I am so excited because our next one is going to be in person, and that'll be nice to be able to see everyone without having to look at a picture. So I would like to turn it back over to you right now, Jane.
Oh, okay. So why don't we start with the Southeast? And I'm wondering, before we start, Ms. Gover, this is the only slide, because if we took the slide down, then we could have more people's faces on, correct? Like, it would feel more like a meeting, maybe. Do we have to have the slide up?
No, I can remove it.
Okay, and then anybody who feels comfortable enough to put their cameras on, that would be great, so that it could kind of feel more like a meeting than just watching the slides. Oh, thank you. Oh, you're all there. Okay. Okay, so Miss Brewster, I know you can't turn your camera on because you're on the phone, so I do understand that. But I'll start with the Southeast area, and you can start to let us know what you are thinking as far as the needs of your community and any things that are working well as well. We always like to hear what's working as well as what may need improvement. Watching the slide. Oh, thank
Since I missed the beginning part of the meeting because I could not get into the meeting, which, by the way, is very frustrating to me that we are having these meetings, and for non-BCPS employees, this is ridiculous that we are having such difficulty trying to attend meetings through Microsoft Teams. So I'm going to ask, because I believe Sandy Scribdalis is there, that she can start us off, and then I will jump in after that.
Thank you, Ms. Brewster, and I'm sorry about the confusion with getting on to Microsoft Teams.
Non-BCPS employees,
Somebody has their live stream, I think, going on, so Ms. Brewster, we might.
I'm going to ask, because I believe Sandy Scribdalis is there.
Okay, there we go. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Jane, can you repeat what you're asking? It's Sandy Scribdalis.
Right. We usually at this point allow each area advisory council to kind of talk about what's been working in their community and what needs they may be having at this point. So
I guess I'll start. So I know that one of the issues that we talked about the other night, we just had a meeting on Monday. And one of the issues that we talked about and shared with a couple of board members who did show up to our meeting. Thank you, Ms. Pumphrey and Mr. McMillan for being there. We were talking, one of the things was about cell phone policy versus implementation of cell phone policy. Patapsco was supposed to be a pilot school for whatever the policy was, which we still don't or the implementation was. And we still don't really know what that implementation is supposed to look like. We had this idea about handing out pouches to students, or, if they refuse to put their phones away, to hand out pouches to them. But that really isn't working. The consequences are not like consistent, I would say. And I know that our principal wasn't given, here's the consequences to if you break the rule. So I know that in our school, we just created our consequences, but I would say that it's not working. So I think it's something to reconsider. And actually today I was at the State House for another purpose, another thing that I'm involved in with National Board. And I was actually outside of the meeting room where they were talking about the 5 pillars of the blueprint today. And I heard them talking about every county has a cell phone policy, but to me, I was just kind of chuckling to myself that we might have a policy, but we don't really have any teeth to the implementation of that policy. So that's something that, as I know teachers in other schools have similar concerns, even ones that might have said in the beginning of the year that it was working. It's not been good. So I know that was one of the things that we discussed. I know that we also have further concerns again about anticipated staffing cuts and the increase of class sizes. That was something that was discussed as well. Jackie, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. So there are several issues that have been or becoming issues in the Southeast. So some of them I'm sure you have heard on multiple occasions, because we discuss a lot of these issues on a regular basis in our meetings. And once again, thanks to Ms. Pumphrey and Mr. McMillan for attending our meetings. But we still are waiting for answers to when they're going to celebrate and when they're going to separate Holabird and Norwood. We still have not heard when they will be fixing open space schools in our area. We have received updates on both Dundalk and Patapsco, which is good, and I'm glad those projects are moving forward. So that's a good thing. I have not still received an adequate answer to why we are putting pre-K programs and preschool programs in buildings that do not have adequate playgrounds for those students. Sandy already talked about the staffing cuts. We have concerns in our area about special education placement and how long it takes when you're having students come in pre-K, how long it takes to put them in the proper placements. which is not a service to either students, that they're not placed properly. We appreciate that you're looking at creating a new school down in the Sparrows Point area for those families down there. And then on my own personal note, lack of funding for library books, because we meet in libraries, and I can see that our libraries are deteriorating. It's one of the reasons why I got involved in the school in the first place, because our books were so outdated. And now it's mandatory that you remove outdated books and damaged books, but we are not receiving adequate funding to replace those books, especially in the areas where we do not have PTAs and other organizations to help us with that funding. Also, as you're moving more students back into buildings that are have special needs, we also have more health needs for those students. So our nursing suites need additional staffing, and speech services. I believe that doing speech online is not sufficient. So I don't know what the answer is. I understand there is a shortage, but I do not want to lose the speech teachers we already have. And then last but not least is I would like an answer to when water or the lack of water, how they determine when a school is closed, and how they determine when a school is reopened. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Do any board members have any questions for Ms. Brewster based on the information she just provided us? Follow-up questions? Yeah, Ms. Salusky?
Thank you. I just have a couple of clarifying questions, if I may, and thank you for sharing, your concerns. In terms of the library, the schools with the library books that you felt were pretty sparse, can you name the schools?
Basically, it's been many of the ones that we are visiting in the southeast area. So we go to different schools. Every meeting we have is at a different school. But I can tell you from my own experience, from where I'm at now, our library is in bad shape.
Okay. So you don't, would you say it's all of the elementary, middle, and high schools?
I think it affects elementary students more, because in years past, we were allowed to charge for if a student damaged a book, and we no longer have that ability to charge for damaged books. So that's whether a student loses a book or they damage a book, we cannot recollect that. That could not be. So that is just another book that gets added into something that we have to use the funds that we get annually.
Okay, thank you. And just one other question regarding the cell phone policy. And it seems as you were mostly focused on Patapsco. Do you know what communications were sent to families regarding the policy?
So at the beginning of the year, when we had our back to school night for parents, I know that there was a slide on that went out to tell parents of the consequences, first time, second time, third time. And then I'm pretty sure that there were, at least on 2 other occasions, they sent something through Schoology messaging, out to parents. And also, I know that we have like a newsletter that goes out to parents, so it could have gone out that early in the year as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like there was communication.
Absolutely.
It's just looking into the follow through with the consequences, and just kind of with this pilot, what is working and what isn't. Is that an accurate
Yes, yes, because I know
Okay.
that there were a couple other schools. I think Sparrows Point was another one that piloted in our area. I'm not sure what the other schools were. I'm not, and the reason I said Patapsco is because I knew that we are a pilot. But also like, so I just to kind of throw this out there, is just something that I was thinking about as a classroom teacher, is that the phones are definitely an issue, but the other day I kind of had this revelation that maybe if we took away the headphones and weren't allowed them to let them have AirPods or headphones, it kind of solves the problem of not allowing them to have phones. But it also then because what they'll do is they sit there with headphones on and try to listen to their phone, and so I think that would hamper their ability to actually as easily be on the phone. And I think that parents wouldn't be as adverse to that because they would still have their phones. But if we say you can't have AirPods, some kids just wear regular sets of headphones, so, it's maybe something to consider. I don't know. So,
No, that's very helpful. And because this is a pilot, the idea about the headphones, that's a very good, good observation point in terms of what we can use to study the pilot. And then I just noticed one other thing that if I can ask about very quickly, in terms of the nurses where you need additional support for the nurses, was that in general in the area or a specific school?
No, that is in general, because more and more students with needs are coming back in the building, and I understand we're mainstreaming them, and we're not receiving additional nursing assistance.
Okay. Thank you for answering my questions. This is very helpful. And thank you for all that you do to support your communities.
And thank you, Ms. Lusky. And to her point, sometimes we would need to know, or it's helpful to know the names of the schools, only because we try to find out, is it a individual school implementation, or is it pattern and trend across schools? And if you don't feel comfortable saying the name of the school, I understand that. So if you don't want to name it, you can follow up with Ms. Gover or myself and just email us what you're talking about, because that tends to happen a lot, where we want to then find out, specifically what is going on. So thank you for asking those follow-up questions. Ms. Pumphrey, did you have a follow-up question for Southeast area?
Yes, I just have one question for Ms. Brewster. And Ms. Brewster, this is, I know the answer to this, but I'm not sure all board members do. I just wondered if you could further explain the reason for your question about the closing for water issues. I think it might be helpful for board members to know that situation.
You mean the situation with the school in the Southeast?
Yes, at Hollabird.
Yes, and so there was an incident there, and I don't know what the full extent of the incident involved was, and I don't know if it was an emergency situation or what the situation was. But we need to figure out what it was, and we need to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
That was a very specific issue, and I know that there was follow-up to how it was handled. So I don't know. To me, there's two separate issues. One is, I thought, was more general as far as how do you determine when to open and close a school when there's water issues. The other one might be what happened at Hollabird as far as the directions that were given. Am I understanding that correctly, Ms. Brewster?
And on that particular day, one school closed, one Southeast middle school closed, and one Southeast middle school did not close.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that follow-up question, Ms. Pumphrey, and Ms. Brewster, your clarification. Any other board member questions for the Southeast? Mr. Fuhr, is that how you pronounce your last name, Fuhr?
Fewer, yes. I'm
Fewer.
from the Southeast, so I just wanted to throw in two quick things if I could.
Sure.
I am still the treasurer at Hollabird, my old middle school. Have no kids in the system anymore, but still very active there. I wanted to very much comment on the overwhelming issue with capacity in the Southeast. And I actually get very frustrated that we have had several capacity studies over the last 6 or 7 years. There comes a recommendation, and then the board does nothing with it, sets it on a shelf, and then we pay to have another study done. Hollabird is over capacity. All of our high schools are over capacity. And while I It seemed like we're always working on the southeast.
I'm sorry, we're losing you. The last thing I heard is we're always working on. Mr. Fuhrer, we can't understand what you're saying. There's something wrong with the connection. Can people hear me? Am I coming through okay? Okay,
Yes, you are.
okay. Mr. Fuhrer, you want to try again, or you may be frozen? Oh,
And I don't know if Will is able to continue or not, but like when we had said before about separating those two buildings, Norwood and Holabird, but that would help alleviate the overcrowding in Holabird.
you're making a reference to having the fifth and sixth, not the fifth, the
Putting the fourth and fifth
the fifth graders back
into
into.
Norwood
Okay.
because our area is the only area that has those type of alignments.
Yes.
Both the middle high school connection at Ferris Point and then the fourth and fifth graders in a middle school. And that needs to be resolved.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so that was our southeast. Let's move to our, how about northwest? Mr. Stoller, I know you're on the phone, so you want to give it a try? Oh, Miss Frempong, did you have a question for southeast? Your microphone.
I did, thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. As far as the nurses, is it that you would like more support for the nurses or more nurses? I was just looking through with the budget, the most recent version of the FY 2026 budget, and I see for like elementary, middle, and high school, the ratio is 1 nurse per school. So are you looking for more support for the nurses themselves, since there is already, I guess, 1 nurse at school?
Yes, it's more support for those nurses because they have more to do out for these students.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Make sure I didn't miss anybody else. Okay, all right, Mr. Stoller. Oh, Miss Booker Dwyer.
And so I appreciate the Southeast sharing, and I feel like there has been no movement. Some of these concerns are the same concerns that came up 2 years ago, and when I hear about the overcrowding, the open floor plan, I know the cell phones, that's fairly new because the pilot just started, and so and the water thing that is fairly new. The books, that's a newer one, but some of the other ones, Jackie, that you brought up, this is reoccurring, and even some of the ones that I'm hearing was even prior to when I was on the board. I remember hearing from listening in on these meetings, and so I'm just wondering what could be done to start to move some of this, so that because we hear you. And I just don't want you all to feel like you come to the meetings with the same concerns and there's no movement. And so I'm just wondering, as a board, or like what can we do? And maybe that's something we could take back as a board, because I hear some of these I've been hearing some of the similar concerns from the Southeast area for the last 2 years. And I would just hate to go into another year not being able to give Southeast a strong response to some of their reoccurring concerns.
So, Ms. Booker, I was taking notes before you started about follow up to so we tend to not have adequate follow up, whether it might not be what you want the response to be, but what is the response? So, I agree that we need to decide. And in a way, I'm glad this is virtual because it's taped. So we really are able to go back and rewatch the meeting and make sure we're really capturing the questions or the concerns that you're asking. So I know virtual is not wonderful for lots of things, but it is for really capturing exactly what you are saying. So as a board, we need to decide how to capture what we're getting, but then how to provide you with some follow up. And especially in this very tight fiscal year, we all realize that we are we're in very unprecedented times. So, but a response to it, certainly, like I know that each library is given a budget to purchase books. So, that's why I think when you ask Ms. Scullcy which libraries they're talking about, because we know there is a budget, but then is it what you said, Ms. Brewster, the fact that we cannot ask parents or families to pay for the books that are damaged, therefore we're always kind of playing catch up instead of replenishing. So thank you for that, Ms. Booker-Twyers. I don't think it needed you just wanted to put that on our plate that we need to make sure we follow up, correct?
That we give a definitive response. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I think I missed somebody's hand. Mr. Fuhr?
I apologize. I'm on my phone now because I don't know what was going on with my laptop, but I
that's
just
okay.
want to say I caught most of that. I appreciate that. The other thing I just wanted to throw in, I wear several hats in the area. I'm on the community, the steering committee for the community schools at the county level.
Okay.
I will say that the information is, and I just sent an email to a couple board members because I'm getting hit with a lot of obstacles. We're not getting adequate information, in my opinion. When the contract was ran by the Y, there was a free flow of information. There was a good communication. Right now, there's not. I get told, well, you can public information request that. You can ask for data that we've had before. It's not personally identifiable. And I travel around to a lot of the schools in the area, and I'm hearing horror stories for CSFs requesting stuff, let's say whatever, and one school will get denied and the school in another area gets approved for the same expenses. And it seems like the process is taking too long. When you're in a building, you don't have a month to wait to know if you can buy a jacket for a person because they don't have a jacket and it's cold outside. You can't wait a month to get those kind of responses. The process is not good. It's not consistent across all of the schools. I know that the Southeast area has got a lot of stuff in. It seems like the time to respond takes a long time. And then just a lot of denials where they have to follow up and spend more time doing that.
So just want to make sure I understand, you were talking specifically about the community schools and how they spend their money and the process they have to go to in order. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was localizing what you are referring to.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the committees for a while, for a couple of years, and very disheartening that I find that CSF in Baltimore County had to return millions of dollars to the state because we couldn't, quote unquote, spend the money. Now, the comment I get is, oh, well, they're going to let us use it for this year because we didn't have guidance. There were several other counties in Maryland that spent all of their money. So how did they do it? And a large jurisdiction like ours did not take advantage of the funding that we should have.
Okay, thank you for that information. Ms. Stileski, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. 3 quick things just in response. The first thing is in terms of the library books, I'm going to send an email to some representatives at the Education Foundation, because I know in the past, as part of their stock of supplies, they have had books in the warehouse and books that they were able to provide. So at least in the short term, I will send a couple of emails to find out if maybe they have books that they could provide as support. And then in terms of the pre-K, the schools that don't have the adequate playgrounds, do we have specific names of schools where the expansion is to include pre-K, but the playgrounds are not appropriate?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
I'm asking,
I just know of Charlemont because that's where I'm at.
okay, so that's one. Okay,
Charlemont does not. But I believe you all should be able to find out what
Yeah.
schools have adequate playgrounds. I believe that is part of your job.
yes, and we can certainly do that. And then just the last thing, do we know, I know Ms. Pumphrey and I are both very involved with the Student Support Network, which is a wonderful resource for community members Do we know if there is a student support network in the Southeast area?
Dundalk High School.
Okay,
Just to
Ma-
cut in here a little bit, because you mentioned that, Felicia, the issue right now with Student Support Network is they have 30 schools on the wait list. So they are trying to get more schools in. My guess would be some of the Southeast area schools are on that wait list, but I just wanted to make that comment.
yeah, no, thank you. But as we plan on some ways to provide for the community and to move some of these concerns forward, at least the Student Support Network and Dundalk might be a really good partnership.
But the one question or the one comment I will make about that is, unfortunately, I'm very involved in Holabird, which is literally right down the street. It's on the same street as Dundalk High School. And the principal there is unfortunately a little territorial, and the Student Support Network is for the students in his building, as when it really should be a community initiative. I mean, several of us at Holabird were very involved in getting it set up at Dundalk, and we're working and staffing it, and we kind of stopped because we were told that our students couldn't come up there.
Okay, so that's good information to have, and that's certainly something that, you know, we can try to support getting rectified. Because
Thank
I
you.
know I'm involved with a high school on the west side, but it's for the entire community. There's no,
And it should
sometimes there
be.
are special services just for the students, but then there's definitely resources that are available community-wide. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. I hate this next phrase that I'm going to use, but in the interest of time, I'm going to, don't like it, but I'm going to have to say it. I'm going to move on to another council. And then we can circle back if time is available. And also, if you think of things afterwards, you certainly, and the chat is also helping, because I see that we have some, a conversation going on in the chat. So that's good too. So we will capture the chat, and you can always follow up and send us more information, when the meeting is over. So I know, Mr. Stoller, I called you like 4 or 5 times, and then I interrupted you. So are you ready to move on to the Northwest area? Oh, no. Mr. Stoller? Okay. All right. If you can hear me, but I will come back to you. Okay. So I'm going to move to the central area. Do we have a representative? I'm not sure she was here when we started, that is going to speak on behalf of the central area.
I think I'm going to speak for Central.
Okay, great. Thank you.
A few notes before I get started. I think, and I'm not sure if this has changed in the last 30 minutes, but Marlena of Southwest said she couldn't join. I don't know if she's since been able to get in, but she's been trying and hasn't been able to, I believe, just an FYI. And then Melissa Alonso, who is the chair, is on. She can hear and see, but she can't speak. So I will talk for Central. And I'm Sarah Condax. I'm a member of the Central Committee, and I think I've met many of you in person, but it's nice to see you again. So we have a couple items, and I'm also not sure if our student representative is on. Braden, I don't know if you're here. I don't think so. I know he was going to join, but maybe he may also be having some problems getting in. It doesn't look like he was able to join. So we've had several great meetings, and a couple of the issues that we wanted to bring up. One of the most important is the special educations program. There have been many concerns about access to the special education platform. I know it's an initiative of the board and Baltimore County to reduce mitigation and improve the special educations program, but it's still a big issue for I think people across Baltimore County, but definitely in the central area. I think transparency, understanding how the program works and what the requirements are. There seems to be a lot of confusion among parents and concern about things like class sizes and resources available. And so that's one of the biggest issues that we're seeing. I think also mental health access and support for I think especially high schoolers is what we're hearing. I don't know how we haven't received a lot of feedback from the middle school level, but I think it's probably everywhere. But making sure that they know what's available to them. I know that you guys have the telehealth resources or online resources. It seems like a lot of kids don't know what's available. But when we have meetings, a lot of kids are experiencing mental health issues and would like support and don't know what's out there. And then that goes to kind of the next issue is just bullying in the schools and in the high schools and kids not feeling completely safe, which I know is something we've talked about at previous meetings, needing to take doors off bathrooms, how to solve kids not feeling safe walking down the halls, issues taking place in bathrooms in kind of more secluded areas. Kids not even going to the bathroom during the day because they don't feel completely comfortable. And so I think one of those issues that maybe follow up would be good to see what, even if nothing's been done, just to know it's still on the radar, because making sure kids feel safe at school seems kind of like 101 if kids don't feel safe, how are they going to get a good education? So I think those are kind of some of the top issues at hand. And then I think just in terms of a council, we want to strive to increase the number of members we have on the central area council and really try to expand to schools that are all over our area. So that's something that we're trying to do over the next few months. So that's what we have.
And thank you, and thank you for speaking on behalf of the central area. I know it sounds like people are on but are unable to speak. So I just want to make sure everybody that's on the phone knows that if you hit *6, it will unmute you and mute you, the microphone. So I'm not sure if that's the issue, but it's worth a try. When you were talking about the bullying in the high schools and kids not feeling safe in those pieces, are you saying that on the whole kind of area, or again, are there individual schools that seem to be, it comes up more that we can then look into those schools specifically?
So we've heard it from a number of schools. We've had several student representatives, and it's been echoed consistently throughout almost every student representative that we've had. And we're talking, I'm trying to remember if it was Towson, who the last student representative was, but there's no school that we haven't heard, to my recollection. And I don't want to, this isn't dozens of schools. We've had 2 or 3 student representatives. But again, this has been a consistent issue. And so I haven't heard that this isn't an issue somewhere. So, and I think, it continues to, drug use and other things in the bathroom. So whether it's bullying or people not feeling safe because they think they're going to be physically harmed, or to activities taking place where they're scared to walk into something that they're then going to be, there's going to be repercussions for them seeing. I think there's a lot of different things. And there were also comments that, hall monitors weren't effective. And that sort of thing. And so how to make sure kids are feeling safe at school, I think is an important topic, especially at the high school level, but obviously at every level.
Thank you for that. Any follow-up questions from board members for Central?
And the one comment about special education, and also I think it bridges as well to the advanced academics, is making sure some of the feedback we got was when we had the call is that there's not, and I know this goes to library books and everything else, but that, it's really not equal school to school. And so if there aren't special education if there's not the right equipment, if they're not the right books, and it's also for advanced academics. If those schools don't have the right books or anything that's needed, are those kids really getting the education that they should get across the border? Across the board. And so I think that was also a concern brought up during the meeting. And the feedback is that it's, there's definitely, I think it was 50% of schools don't have, the books, everything that they need to provide that educational material to the students.
Thank you for that. And also thank you for working hard to get student representatives on the board. I know that hearing their voice really enhances the work. Not to say, and I know everybody has trouble getting people on the board, so I'm just saying that it's good that at least we're getting some student representatives to be able to give their perspective. Ms. Stileski had put something down. She is very active with the Owings Mills High School and has seen some effective programs work as far as hall monitoring. So I see her frantically writing, so she will probably be following up with that. So thank you for that. Ms. Booker-Dwyer, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, the bullying that you're referring to, is that occurring more in the high schools, middle schools, elementary schools, or is it across the board?
So the only thing I can say is that I haven't seen it personally at the school where my son attends. The feedback we've received has mainly been from our, so we've had multiple meetings with mainly high school students from a range of schools, and they've all expressed that, concern about going to the bathroom, about not feeling safe in those types of more secluded spaces. And I think, so I haven't spoken to anyone from a middle school. So I can't speak to what, I don't want to say definitively. I haven't had unfortunately had those conversations. But the feedback we've received is that it is happening in high schools, and and I think kind of going over into mental health, having resources, somewhere kids can go to talk about it, somewhere they can go to report it, and making sure that they also said that they report it and nobody cares. There's, teachers will walk by and see stuff happening and not want to intervene because they don't even feel safe getting in the middle of it. So I think there's multiple issues.
Thank you. Mr. Henson? You're on mute, Mr. Henson. Wait, did you take your hand down?
Manny, I think if you need to unmute, if you've been muted, they said star six.
Yep, I figured it out. Thank you. I'm on my cell phone. I appreciate the opportunity to talk. My name is Manny, and I'm in the Century. I'm the vice chair. And just to echo some of what was said, I've had people state that there is a little bit more fraternizing of the hall monitors, maybe with the students, and maybe they don't take their jobs as seriously. Maybe that's changed a little bit in some of the high schools. And so some of the students have had a issue with going and bringing persistent issues back to them for fear of either just not being taken seriously and not going anywhere. I had a question around AI and the use of AI with preparing work and in our writing, in our policy, having more clarification to the extent in which plagiarism is seen being done by AI and what it isn't. I think that was one issue. I also think that there's a misconception about what public school is and some of the opportunities you have as a parent. And I think there's been a lot of, especially in Baltimore, maybe in May when I was growing up, parochial school was the biggest thing in Philadelphia as an alternative, and that was kind of a common thing the parents looked at. But I think maybe you could brag a little bit more about some of the things you can do, and kind of maybe have a video, or you have something that's a public PSA about what is it that BCPS is doing, and what are some of the common myths between private school and BCPS. I think that might be helpful.
Thank you for that. That's very interesting perspective that we don't hear enough. So thank you for saying that. Ms. Frempong, did you have a follow-up?
I did. Just back to the bullying issue. And I've heard hall monitors, and I've heard mainly high school. Do these schools also have SROs at those schools as resources, or no?
I don't know what that is.
Right. All of our
So-
high schools
Oh.
has SRO or school resource officers.
Okay,
Right.
yeah, sorry.
But I know all of our high schools and middle schools do. There's also the behavior assistants too. So I'm wondering if the hall monitors you're referring to are the behavior assistants, or is it a different program? I'm sorry, Ms. Frempong, I didn't mean to hijack your question.
No, I appreciate that. And yeah, thank you for clarifying for misconducts. But I was trying to understand like what resources are there to help the students. And it's because for me, when I heard hall monitors, and then I think Mr. Henson spoke about fraternizing, I was wondering if those were students as hall monitors. So again, kind of looking for the adult resources in those buildings that would be able to help with student safety.
I don't know. I'm happy, and this is great. Any and all questions, I'm happy. Unfortunately, like I said, one of our students was supposed to be on the call. Happy to take back and, after our next meeting, follow up with you guys and answer all of these questions. I will say that one specific comment again was that even teachers have seen comments in the past where our students have seen teachers witness some of these things, and the teachers haven't wanted to get involved, or have walked by and seen things kind of happen. And I can't speak to specific incidents. This was a broad statement, because they felt maybe unsafe themselves, or not wanted to put themselves in the middle of whatever was happening. So that's the extent to which I can comment on this, unfortunately, without a tremendous amount of detail, and having not been in the situation myself. Just that, kind of, again, painting with broad strokes, that, students not wanting to use the bathroom during the day, and even going home or waiting to go home to use the bathroom, or be in secluded places, or not wanting to leave the class at all, or being scared to walk out of the class during empty periods because of not wanting to have an altercation, or be confronted by someone, or see something that other people didn't want them to see, and facing a repercussion. Again, these are very broad statements, but this is like the general feedback. And then the other thing, and I think it's a great point, is students, whether it's mental health or something else, feeling like they aren't made fully aware of whatever resources are available to them. So I'm not saying it's specifically the resource officer. No one said they don't know there's a resource officer to me. But it's just a good point that students often have felt like they don't know, whether it's mental health or whatever, that, making sure students feel as though they know everything that's available to them, which they may not always. The school may feel like they have resources available, but if the students don't know, then it's not very effective.
Thank you. Okay.
And just to piggyback and clarify, the situation I was explaining from what I heard from the student was that some of these hall monitors are ex-students. So they are maybe just out of high school, maybe a little bit on the younger side. And so that might be what the issue is. The other thing is that I recognize with the bomb threats and things like that, I've had a student in Towson as well. Have some concern about coming back to the class, and there's no necessarily metal detectors. I'm not sure if that would change the atmosphere or the tone and the environment is within the high schools, but I'm not sure if we've gotten to a point where we need metal detectors, or that would make people feel safe. But that's something I guess we could have a conversation about.
Thank you. Mr. Stoller, I'm going to try you again for the Northwest. Are you able to speak? Oh, no. Okay, we'll come back. Let's see. So we've done the Southeast, and we've done the Central. I'm not sure there's someone here from the Northeast. Did Mr. Burley sign on? Was there anybody from the Northeast Area Advisory Council online? Nope. Okay. And then, Marlena, I think I did see that you signed on. Are you there?
I am. I will wait my turn.
No, it's your turn. We're ready for you. Perfect timing.
Okay. All right. I apologize, everyone, for not being able to be on screen. I
No
did have
worries.
another obligation. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. I had another obligation, but I do want to make sure that the Southwest is represented and also to support my other colleagues that are on screen and in the meeting. So hello, each and every one of you. Our student board member as well. You're representing nice shiny face. I greet you all, and I'm hoping that this year is prosperous for you thus far. For the Southwest area, I'm reporting that we are still looking for volunteers. We are in dire need of representation from the top of the Southwest area, so that'd be Windsor Mill area, all the way down to the bottom, which is the Lansdowne Arbutus area. Anywhere in between, Catonsville, Woodlawn, Gwen Oak, we will welcome each and every one of you. So please reach out by sending us an email. It is not a lot of your time, but I do want to just put that plug in that we are in dire need of support and volunteerism. In terms of our year at a glance thus far, we're at the midpoint. As you know, we have monthly meetings. We did not have one in December. We have had every month since then, though, and we are coming up into the next month as well. We hope that the topics that we have decided on to bring forth has been eventful, but also informative, and that you're able to take something back and maybe perhaps invite somebody else. I'll just wrap this up by saying when we had our capital and what is it called, our budget meeting in October, we were able to get a little bit of feedback. We wanted more, but I applaud Baltimore County for providing multiple opportunities for our parents and the caregivers to be able to express themselves. But I do want to just emphasize that the budget, or having that opinion and things of that nature, we definitely want to perhaps when the superintendent does post her budget or the budget, we would love to maybe have a highlight or a hallmark of it to say this came from, or this was as a result of the town hall meetings or something of that nature, just to make sure that people know that their voices were heard and that it was included, if that makes sense. I know that you can't absolutely provide each and every one of our desires, but just indicating that this came from the town hall meeting, or this came from the Southwest Area Education Advisory Council, that resonated from that meeting or whatever. I will say at our last meeting we had in January, it was an extensive sidebar, I guess, like, how you have after the meeting conversations, because we couldn't hold anyone else hostage, but it was a lot of conversation, as stated, about the special ed department in terms of children that are in need of services. So I resonate, and I just want to bring that up again from our central chair, that our parents are crying out. It may not be that the students are not receiving them. It is a process, and we know that advocacy takes time, but I believe that Baltimore County should look at or include more sessions for understanding, if that makes sense.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does. So thank you. And
Okay.
as far as your idea about acknowledging where some ideas come from, I know that we usually do that with surveys, because we'll summarize community surveys and what the responses are, but maybe we're not doing that well enough when it's just face-to-face meetings, such as the town halls and pieces like that. So that's very interesting perspective. So thank you for that.
No problem. Thank you.
And I didn't mean to
And
interrupt
so
you.
I don't want to.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I didn't want to take any more time. That was just the two that I want to just kind of bring up.
Okay,
What were you going to say?
thank you. And I know that you are doing two meetings at one time, so we understand if you have to go back to the other one, and we thank you for contributing to this one.
Oh,
But I think you
yeah,
have a
no problem.
question. I'm not sure. Miss Condex, did you have a question for Miss Purcell?
It wasn't necessarily a question for Ms. Purcell, and I'll
Okay.
make it fast, but again, just to echo the special education session that we had was very productive, and there was such a cry out. We have like 5 people at our meetings. Normally there were dozens and dozens and dozens of people that joined. And I'm also on a committee at Hopkins. They're trying to partner with local educators on special education programs. And I would urge the Board of Education to think about doing this. Bridging the gap, I really think part of the problem is that there's a gap between doctors and educators on what special education requirements are. And so doctors are telling parents, this isn't every single time, but they're saying a doctor's telling a parent your child meets, should have special education provisions, but doctors don't know what that is. They're saying your child has a need. And so parents are coming to schools and saying, my doctor said that my child qualifies for this, but a doctor has no idea. And so it's setting parents up from day one. Obviously, many children do need special provisions. I understand that. But so parents are set up from day one, to have a hostile relationship with the school because they think that they deserve that they need, not deserve, but that their child qualifies. And that, but the tests and qualifications are really very different from what a doctor thinks a child needs and what a school thinks a child needs. And so I really urge the Board of Education to think about partnering with hospitals and local doctors or whatever to do more of a training program so that from day one, doctors can be more educated and make better recommendations and help guide families more. And if it's a partnership, then everyone wins and parents aren't caught in the middle. And so I know that there's a lot that goes into this, but that's my one little plug. So.
And that's very interesting perspective. I really had never thought of it that way, but is there a disconnect between the two crucial pieces in a parent's life? I have to listen to my doctor and I got to listen to the school, and sometimes, it's not giving me the same information. So I appreciate that perspective. Thank you. So Mr. Stoller, Northwest. Mr. Stoller, if you can hear me, because I know you can't speak right now, I encourage you to send your comments that you are going to make to Ms. Gover or myself or both of us so that we can incorporate them into the discussion that the board needs to do to follow up on tonight's meeting. Are there any other comments or questions from anybody, any of the participants in tonight's meeting? I know we've gone over a little bit, but we had the tech part issues in the beginning. So are there any other comments or questions?
This is Ms. Purcell.
Hi, this is Ingrid and Mrs. Wu. I don't know if you can hear me, hear us,
Yes,
I mean.
yes, we can. Hi, Ms. Wu.
We got feedback from BCPS teacher, some of the climate surveys that they suggested there are options that are applicable, or if it's non-applicable, they should be able to check that box because when they do the survey, they say they can't move on to the next page unless they answer the question. But if it's not applicable, they can't choose one of the options.
Okay, very nice.
And I've
Thank you.
heard that from parents as well.
Okay, that's very specific. I think that we might be able to do something about that one really fast. But
thank you.
Thank you for that. Were there any other comments or questions from anybody? And I want to also get back to Ms. Booker Dwyer's comment that she made towards the beginning, as far as that we need to really look at the follow-up from these meetings. What really is the purpose of these meetings, and then what is the follow-up, whether we're able to grant the wishes or whether we can't, there still needs to be follow-up either way. So we will work together. We have a number of board members who attended tonight, and thank you, board members, for your time. I know last night was a long, board meeting, so these were back to back. So I really appreciate you being here to listen to our area advisory councils. And again, I know we say it every time, but we can't. It's a volunteer position. You are doing this for your devotion to the school. Many of you don't have children in our school anymore, but you are committed to helping us make Baltimore County a strong county and doing the best for our students. So I know that it's hard to get members and it's hard to get students, and it's hard. It's hard and it's sometimes thankless, but sometimes we're seeing the same faces. You don't give up. And I appreciate you coming back and helping, year after year. So again, if you think of something when you hang up or you weren't able to talk because of whatever tech problem there was, you can reach out to Ms. Gover or myself or any board member, and we will add that to tonight's discussion. So at this time, I think I have to get back to my script.
Just wondering if people can see the chat, because I know we typed in the chat and I don't know if you saved the chat or you can see it.
Yes, Ms. Gover, and
Just a suggestion.
Yes, Ms. Gover is going to capture the chat because there is a lot of good information in there, and that will also be published along with the video. So is there
there's
any
a message that Mr. Stoller is on the phone?
Oh, Mr. Stoller.
That's what came in on the chat.
Right, I see that now. Mr. Stoller, are you here? Mr. Stoller.
Oh, and we wanted to say thank you for the observation of the Lunar New Year. That's great. And I saw the Diwali and, the other, so it's multicultural and we teach the students about that. That's really important. And it's actually lunisolar, just to be, to be technically correct, because the Chinese calendar is actually both on the moon and the sun. So Mrs. Wu especially wanted to point out the scientific fact. So that's why today's warmer. The first of the new year is supposed to be the start of spring. If you haven't noticed,
learned something new. We didn't think we were going to leave with that information. Say it again, lunisolar. Is that what you said it's called?
Lunisolar. Yes, because it's based on the moon and the sun.
Right.
So it's the calendar dates back thousands of years, and that's why the moon phase is 29 and a quarter. So the Chinese calendar has 29 or 30 days, and to make up for the solar part, 365 or 66. So this year there will be a leap month. So every couple of years there will be a leap month. There'll be 13 months instead of 12.
Right.
So that's why if you project next year, I saw the calendar, it's going to be February the 18th, the day after President's Day. That's why, because we have a leap 6 month this year. And where they put the month depends on the season.
Okay, we need science teachers. So if you are interested, but we all learned a lot. So thank you for that. Ms. Sibley, did you want to help us conclude the meeting? Ms. Sibley? Ms. Sibley?
Happy lunisolar New Year to everybody.
Happy lunisolar, but happy lunisolar. Ms. Sibley, do you have your hand? You have your little hand up?
I did, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Am I coming through? I'm having problems.
Right now you
I
are.
just wanted to remind everyone that the next joint meeting will be in person at BCPS. Dinner will be at 5:30. The meeting will be at 6:30, and it's May 21st.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'm going to try one more time, Mr. Stoller. Are you there? Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Stoller, but we will capture your thoughts somehow. So, is there any further business? We got our science piece in, our next meeting in. If not, again, thank you all for attending, whether you are from the area councils or whether you're board members. And board members, I appreciate your support tonight and helping to ask the follow-up questions. So I appreciate that. So if there's no further business, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you for joining us and have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.